I I am here today with none other than Cory Harelson of Freedom Investment Group. So Cory, you and I go back a ways. I know you've been in the mobile home park space for a while. You got a really interesting story on how you went from engineering to finding a deal off Craigslist, was it, or Facebook Marketplace?
Craigslist back then. Facebook Marketplace wasn't a thing back then.
Nice, nice. Well, everybody says you can't get any good deals on Craigslist, but they're a thing. You're not the first person either I've talked to who said they bought a park off of Craigslist. So it's crazy.
Yeah, totally. Well, no, thanks. I'm pumped to be here, Jeff. Yeah, that was my. I originally that was 2015. I was working crazy long hours as an engineer, and I was 60 to 80 hour weeks. Felt like I was missing seeing my kid grow up. As a structural engineer, didn't think about real estate at all. Didn't like. I wish so much that someone would have gone back and like slapped me when I was in college and been like, save half your money and invest it in real estate. But they didn't, and I just blew all my money on climbing gear and trips until I was like 35, and then all of a sudden I'm working these long hours. I have a kid who's not even 2 years old yet, and he I felt like I was hardly ever getting to see him. There's one week in particular where I was in work before he woke up, and I was coming home after he was already asleep, so I didn't see him awake for an entire week. And then finally it was a Sunday afternoon. I was like, screw this, I'm going home. I'm gonna at least put my kid to bed. So I went home. I went to take him from my wife to go give him his bath and put him down. And he went into total stranger danger mode, just like screaming, clawing, trying to get back to my wife, trying to get back to mom. Like, who is this guy? It was like when you hand him to the uncle they haven't met yet. And
Yeah.
I was a stranger to my kid. So that was what like my original impetus was, getting into this whole mobile home park thing. But I didn't even know then. I was just like, I have to do something. And then I read Rich Dad Poor Dad and thought, oh, cash flow, like real estate, this sounds great. And so we were actually, when I found that Craigslist deal, my wife and I were actually looking for duplex, threeplex, fourplex. We weren't looking for a mobile home park. I had built out a spreadsheet. I figured out how to build a pro forma to analyze deals, and I was analyzing all these like fourplexes in my area, and they all sucked. And I was getting discouraged. And then that's when I found that one on Craigslist. I was like, mobile home park, interesting. And I punched those numbers in my spreadsheet and was like, oh, that's way better.
What year is this at
Yeah.
this point?
That would have been late 2015, I think, when I found the Craigslist one. And then I took I had a buddy of mine that was our real estate agent. He helped us buy our house, but he's the only person in the world I knew at the time that invested in real estate. He had a bunch of rentals, just like single family rentals over by the college by Boise State. And my buddy Matt, and I took him out for a beer, and I was like, Matt, I'm thinking of doing something crazy, and I need you to talk me out of it, and I need you to tell me why. I'm thinking of buying a mobile home park. And he was like, no, man, they're cash cows. He's like, I know guys who own those. So he actually helped me figure out how to like get a list from the title. We went to the title company. We got a list of every mobile home park that was, everything was like, registered or whatever. Somehow they tracked the asset type. Everything that was a mobile home park under whatever the value, I forget what value, we were under $500,000 or something we were looking at the time. And we got a whole bunch, it was all a bunch of small mobile home parks. And we just sent a bunch of letters out. And this was before like everybody was buying them. Like, people would look at you sideways if you said you were doing it. And so we just got a whole bunch of responses back and kind of laid them all out on the table. And we're like, we'll take that one. And so that's how we found our first park. And then,
Well, that's cool.
yeah, that was 2016. We closed on that. So
That's
that was
awesome.
fun.
Now all of those same parks, they've all blocked your number. They don't take calls anymore because they just get hounded by people. That's at
Oh
least
my
what I've
gosh.
seen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, well, and it's crazy because like now, because we've got all these parks everywhere, and so I get calls on them all the time, like all of them. But they now, like with the skip tracing, they can find all your relatives too. So like all of my brother, my parents, and everybody else is getting, just like every single day they're getting, they keep forwarding to me, and I was like, you don't have to forward me those. Like, I get them too.
Yeah. Just go on LinkedIn. You could probably message him. Yeah, that's hilarious.
Yeah, you
My
can
friend
DM
used
me
to
on LinkedIn. I'm there.
my friend's wife, actually one of my business partner's wife, she gets called about his all the time. And she just eventually just learned what he was selling each one for, and now like has conversation. So I guess that's why people keep calling, because as the person making the call, you really don't know who the owner is. It's not always super clear. So you just gotta go and work your way
So
until you finally get to them.
So here's a tip that I had gotten for, I think it works better for like smaller. I don't know if you'd find any like 100 pad parks on there, but for finding parks that are mispriced, this was my buddy Blake's strategy, who I bought my very first mobile home park from. We became friends after that. I ended up selling a park to him at one point. Like, I actually need to give him a call. It's been a minute since I've talked to him. He's a super good dude. But he built up like a 500 pad portfolio all with his own money, like, and is just like retired as you can be now, like sailing boats and flies down to Vegas for season tickets at the Raiders and everything. He's he found his deal, so he would go on realtor.com and he would go to these markets that were like the smaller town outside of the bigger city, realtor.com, and sometimes there will be mobile home parks that pop up on there. And he said, typically when they're on there, it's not a commercial broker. It's not someone who actually knows how to price them. So it's like this person who has a relationship with this residential broker who's like, oh yeah, I'll list that for you. And so he said they're always either way too expensive or way not expensive enough. Yeah. And so he actually, I think that was like one of his big lead sources when he was building up his portfolio of like 15, 20, 30 pad parks.
Yeah. They need to make real commercial real estate and residential real estate licenses different, because they do not make any sense. And it happens normally, unfortunately, it's like nowadays 9 times out of 10, they're listing it way too high. Typically what I see is like a all park owned home park. They Google, how do you underwrite a commercial real estate? They just put a cap rate on it and they list it for like twice what it should be.
Let's take the whole NOI and put a 4 cap on it.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. It's like, that'll do it. And then my favorite response is always like, oh, well, that's just what we're asking. It's like, oh, okay. So you don't even have like legitimate.
Yeah.
Nice. So you were a structural engineer. I was meaning to ask you what kind of engineer you were. So what kind of engineering firm were you working at the time?
Yeah, so I worked at a firm. So we did structural engineering. So we basically worked for architects and tried to make buildings not fall down. Right. Was the goal. And we were pretty good at that. And see, it was a cool career. It was cool. I liked the content of what I did. Like, it was super interesting. It's cool. I go ride my bike around Boise and there's like buildings on the Boise skyline. And it was like, I did that. Like, it's super cool. And it was cool people to work with too. I just kind of had this itch of wanting to control my time and experiment and,
So you were a W-2 there, just like full time, probably a good paying job, but it was just like, man, you look up and it's like, how does this eventually equal, my freedom? And it's kind of hard to see.
Yeah, and it was that's exactly it. I just felt like I had no control. It's a deadline based business, right? So like it kind of comes, if you've got the deadline, the work's got to get done. And so it was the schedule piece of it was really tough for me. Even if like the end result, like the stuff I was doing, I actually did like, but not having any control over my, you'd go out. And the other thing was like, I started looking at like what it would look like, okay, like if I was like kind of close to, like I was almost knocking on the door of like the partnership level. And like, I kind of realized like once I started buying some parks, it was like, it's a lot of work. If you're in an engineering company, go get projects, especially if you're going after bigger projects. It's a lot, like the whole business development piece and like actually bringing in work is hard. And so it was about the same amount of work to go find a mobile home park or to go find a project. It seemed like it's very similar. Like there's all kinds of marketing and getting to know, it's outreach and all this stuff. Right. And so, but it's like if you go like for any kind of consulting, you go and you get the project and then you do the work and you get paid and then it's done and you got to go do it again and again and again. And there's no like, you're kind of just have to keep doing it. Whereas mobile home park, each one of those I get is like, I feel like I'm making progress. Like I don't lose it when I'm done. We get it, we improve it, and now we have it and it's cash flowing. So that's kind of, I like that. I like that aspect. It's like I get to keep what I'm, I get to keep it.
It does feel more concrete. Yeah. Cause I know what you're saying. Like that's exactly why I left brokerage. I was doing literally the same thing I'm doing today. I was finding park owners and I was finding buyers. And now I'm just the buyer every time I find a park. But it was like, hey, we closed the deal. It's like, okay, now we immediately have to go find the next one and the next one and the next one and the next one. And it's the same. I mean, that was fully commissioned. And it got to the point where it's like, man, I don't need a whole lot of extra cash. I want to know when my end date is where I don't have to work this hard anymore. Right. And so that's when the ownership kind of started making sense. But okay, so you've got your first deal kind of lined up. How did it go when you told your wife, like, hey, I think I want to invest our hard saved money in a mobile home park? What was her first reaction to that?
When I told my wife I wanted to invest in a mobile home park, I've had a lot of crazy ideas over the years, and she's typically supported me. So I'm very lucky to have to be married to the woman that I'm married to. When I told her, I had a perfectly good, we had a perfectly good career going in Los Angeles at one point, and I said, well, we got to get the heck out of here. Like, I want to move to Boise, Idaho. We didn't know anybody in Boise, Idaho. And like, she was down. So she's cool. She was just like, okay, like, let's go. So she's
Nice.
she's pretty cool that way. Yeah. So no, she's been on board from the I mean, she's kind of like, she's not as nerdy about mobile home parks as I am, so she's just like, oh cool, honey, you got another one. Like, what okay, we gotta like go get this for dinner. Like, or what. So
Yeah.
but no, it's I'm really lucky to have her for sure.
And she just wrote a kid's book too, right?
She did, and she was just on her coaching call for it earlier today. I think launch date's going to be June 24th on her kids book. So
Nice.
she'll be launching it soon. She wrote this book. That's one of the cool things about the real estate thing. So like, even before we got to financial independence, like, we were just a couple years in, and I had already. I mean, granted, it was a teacher's salary. It wasn't that hard to replace a teacher's salary because I go into a whole thing, but for the amount of work teachers do, holy crap, they don't make very much money. But anyway, so it was pretty easy to replace her salary. And we had our second kid, and it was like, you're going to give your whole salary to the daycare anyway. So she was able to step away. But back when she was a teacher, she was very passionate about what she did, and she was a great teacher. But she actually made, this was a children's book that she wrote herself, and she would use it in her classroom. So she wrote this thing 15 years ago, and it had her little like crayon drawings, and like but she would it was like a character building kind of. It's an interesting book. Like, she's a little self conscious about the fact that it has no real ending. It's just kind of like a make you think, like, sort of an ending to it that's supposed to trigger, I guess, discussion about like right and wrong and what would you do in this situation. And it's not necessarily like a black and white deal. So it's I think it's, I mean, I'm biased, but I think it's a really cool book. And it's been a
That's
long time
cool.
coming. She got an actual illustrator, and so it's been, a year and a half long project getting her to publish it, but we're just a couple
Wow.
weeks away now. So I'm
Nice. Well, it
excited for
sounds
her. Yeah.
better. Yeah, it sounds better than some of the kids' books. Like, so my wife and I, we've got a 10-month-old now, so I'm getting indoctrinated into the dad life and
Mm.
reading these books. And the one of them, the author, it says Doctor something. I can't remember the name of it, but the book is literally fish, turtle. You turn the page, truck, car. I'm like, this doctor is taking credit for this. It's a series of pictures in one word. But
The
this is
Dr. Seuss. You
crazy.
got to get the Dr. Seuss ones
Yeah,
are good. Or the Dr. Seuss ones are really good. He's the good
yeah.
doctor for the books.
What grade did your wife teach?
Mostly, she did a bunch, but mostly fifth grade was what she taught. Yeah, she taught fifth grade for a number of years. She taught fifth grade in LAUS. It was a whole thing where she was getting laid off every year in California. But anyway, she taught in LAUSD. She taught in Hermosa district. She taught in a bunch of different districts around there. And then we moved to Boise, and she taught in Boise School District for a bunch of years before we, basically until we had our second kid. She taught over here.
Yeah, my wife was a first grade teacher, and I know exactly what you're talking about. It's insane what we pay teachers, and our country is so lucky that like every teacher is passionate. That's the only reason they do that job. But gosh, we take advantage of it like crazy because they get
She
next to
literally made
nothing.
more money waiting tables in college while she was getting her degree than she made actually teaching. Like, it was
Yeah,
crazy. And then it's like, she doesn't take the summer off. She's lesson planning the whole time. She's working weekends. Like, she was working as many hours as I was. Like, I mean, because she was so like into it,
yeah.
trying to like, this lesson didn't go that great last time, I'm gonna make it better and tweak this. And like, she was always like, yeah, she's very, very passionate about it.
And they got to buy a lot of their own stuff too. Like when my wife and I moved, I'd say a third of the U-Haul was like books, and I was like, "Well, aren't you leaving this with the school?" She's like, "No, these are mine." I was like, "Oh
Yeah.
my gosh!" But yeah, it's just over time. I mean, it's just we can go on a tangent about that, but it's funny. I think we both kind of came from the exact same path of like, hey, we're not making much money, but here's this vehicle. It's kind of odd. Most people might not think of it, which I think is the reason why there's still a lot of good opportunities out there. So she sounded like she was on board with it. And then how soon was it from like where you made the decision like, hey, we want to go after this one to like actually closing on it and being a park owner?
So we sent all the letters out. I got a bunch of responses back. One of those is the park that we ended up buying. Fortunately, the guy who sold it to me, Blake, was like really patient because he was not in a hurry to sell it because it took me a while to figure out the financing. Like I just literally, I was like, someone's got to be landing on these. So I just went to Google and I Googled all the banks and all the credit unions and I just started calling them one by one. Like, do you guys lend on mobile home parks? No. Do you guys just no, 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 until finally I got to Mountain West Bank in Boise. Emily Solly's over in their commercial department there. She's awesome. She was the first person who lent with us. So one of the VPs of that bank owned some mobile home parks and so like understood them. And so they weren't afraid of it. So they ended up doing our first loan, but it took, I think I had that thing under contract for 6 months or something like before we finally closed. It was a long, it was a long process. I mean, I did all the due diligence and everything. And then, yeah, the lending that time around the lending, I just had to keep calling, making more phone calls until I got a yes.
What kind of loan amount was that on that first one that you were requesting?
I bought it for 340,000. I put it was roughly 100,000 down. So it must have been a $240,000 loan. So not a lot.
Isn't that crazy? Because I'm sure like within 6 months of buying it, the appraisal, it was probably far more valuable than that.
Well, it cash flowed. So the cool thing was used a HELOC on my house for the down payment. So I took a HELOC on the house for the 100K down, and then I took the commercial loan for the rest. And back then, the cap rates were so high. I mean, it paid the loan. It paid for all of the debt, and then some. There was cash flow from a lot from day one. Wow. Yeah, it was a good. And so then I just funneled all that cash flow into paying down the HELOC, and then we got really intentional about our savings, which we had not been prior. So we actually got really, really buckled down on like savings rate, and we got our savings rate up above 50%. So we were funneling just all the cash flow from the thing and that back into the HELOC, paying the HELOC down, and then we had another down payment with the HELOC again the next year on the next park, and we like did that a few times. With it just kind of like paying down that HELOC, and then she quit her job, and then we got this even just with my salary, then we got the saving rate back up to 50% with just one. So that I think was like the really like thing, like that savings rate for especially those first several years, just to be able to have some funds to be able to actually use. Because I had a good salary, but we had bought our house at really good timing in 2011, so we had a bunch of equity in our house, but I wasn't prior to that whole like thing that happened with my kid. I wasn't a very good saver. So yeah, I just, now I'm like, oh man, if I had done that, like just saved if I had just gone into it, like I'm going to save half of everything I make from like the get go. If I had started that when I started working in 2005, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, everybody, it's hard to, at least you got started, right? I mean, for so many people, we all look back and it's like, man, I wish I would have done this sooner. It's like things happen for a reason. You get into the things at the right time when you're ready to appreciate it. Because that's the other thing. I've seen other people who kind of just get lucky with their first real estate deal, and then they just hit some home run without even realizing it. And then you're like, wow, that's cool. They're off to a great start. You check in with them in 5 years and things are crumbling because they got this idea that it's easy. They got this idea that money is just plentiful and deals never go bad. And, you and I both know deals don't always go well, and
That's
we'll
true.
get into that more. But yeah, because I know you and I have talked about that a lot. But yeah, it's good. I mean, it's kind of good that you kind of went that route. So it sounds like the first one, it was just you and the HELOC. How many parks did you buy that way before you started raising capital for them?
So I bought 4 all small parks, right? Like there's like 12 lots, 7 lots, 6 lot kind of things. But I bought 4 parks that way. And then I did the playbook, of, hey, let's build back water and sewer. Let's fill in the vacancies, kind of on a small scale on each of those. And then I sold a couple. I did a cash out refi on that very first one that I bought. Cause that one was like, I had to do a bunch of work on that. It was like we had 11 good tenants and 1 not good tenant. We bought it, and he did us a favor and stopped paying immediately. So we kicked him out, which saved his life because that was Snowmageddon year in Boise, which was the winter of 16, 17, where it exceeded all the design snow loads. There was like a grocery store roof that collapsed. Like it was like this crazy Snowmageddon year. his home was in really bad shape, and we kicked him out because he stopped paying, but we needed him out. The roof on his home collapsed over the bedroom area. I don't know if it happened at night or in the daytime, but he was like I said, we had 11 good tenants and one not so good tenant. So he was in there in not the most bright-eyed state most of the time, I'll just say. So there's a good chance we might have saved his life by kicking him out of that thing.
Wow.
But so anyway, so then we got that home hauled out. We brought in I found a used home, brought that one in. That was like my very first like actual install where I had to source a home, bring it in, then we had to remodel it. I sold it to this sweet little old lady who had just gotten divorced. She'd moved out of a 4,000 square foot house. She bought the thing cash. Great. I was like, oh, she's going to be the best tenant ever. She's probably in her 50s, late 50s, and her sisters all helped move her in. And it was this whole thing like, oh, you're a new start to your life. And she moves in, and then she ends up being trouble too. Like she kept getting, like she was, I don't know, she had like a drinking problem, I think. She kept getting like thrown in jail she couldn't pay the rent because she kept getting locked up for drunk driving, was what happened. So,
oh man.
Yeah, so it was like this one unit. And like I said, the other 11 tenants were just all like these like family people that were just like super nice, normal, like going to work people. And then it's just this one unit. I was like, oh, and then finally like, I like tried to work with her. You know, her sisters were stepping in to help her out. And I was trying to like work with her, like, okay, when are you getting out? And then it would happen again. And then finally, like, it just wasn't going to work anymore. We basically bought the house back from her for a little bit, and then because she had like 8 cats. I don't know. She had like trashed it. So then it was like needed a rehab again. I was like, oh, I so don't want to rehab this thing again. And so this is like my first deal that was like, this is I 9x equity multiple this deal over 5 years. Like this deal is like smoke a deal, but still, even like the good deals, you have the lesson learned, right? And I had a buddy who was like, he had done 1 or 2, and he was actually a coworker of mine. He was doing mobile home flips. So he was getting into like flipping mobile homes. And I was like, hey, I got one. Like, I don't want to renovate this thing. Like, I'm trying to go buy another park. Like, I don't want to just be doing this one home. Yeah. Like, do you want this? So I sold it to him for $3,500. He put another, like 12 into it. So I think he was into it all in for about 15. It was nice when he was doing it. Painted the outside, stainless steel appliances. He did a bunch of the sweat work himself too. Yeah. But so he was into it for 15 and then sold it for 35 cash, like in probably 45 days total. So he did really well. And then we finally got a good tenant in there. It was like, we did it. So it's third time the charm, with that one. But yeah, that was my first park. And then that one we did a cash out refi in 2020. We did a cash out refi. Then I bought my 51 lot park in Michigan, with that. And then the next year the value went up even more. And there was like all this outside of state money coming in where I got an offer that was like, I didn't want to sell it. Cause at that point it was like an hour a month. It was like so easy. It was no management. It was all tenant owned homes. But it was the price that they were willing to pay was higher than I thought it was worth. So I sold it that year and then 1031 into another park. So that 12 unit turned into a 51 and a 27. With
pretty incredible.
Those two moves. Yeah.
That's awesome. What is it? I got to ask this. What is it like as a structural engineer to look at park owned homes? I mean, I got to imagine like you've seen some crazy, definitely not up to code shenanigans that some of these guys do with these homes. I mean, is that like just give you anxiety every time you see one of those situations?
Yeah, I know what I'm looking at now. It depends. Like the new ones are really nice. Like the new ones, right, they got smart thermostats and they got more like widgets and bells and whistles than my house does. Like I would live in the new ones.
Yeah.
Anything like the last 10 years is great. And then you see some of the old ones that, you go in. And it's crazy because sometimes you'll go in these old ones. It'll be like a 1960s or something, like really old. And you'll go in from the outside. You're just like, oh man, what am I walking into? And you'll go in and they'll have it like immaculate on the inside. And you're like, oh, this is actually like, okay. Like, okay, I can see this. And then sometimes you go in and it's just like awful. It's like, there's this, I don't know, but you usually, like we'll usually try, if we end up inheriting the home, like this portfolio we're buying right now, we're inheriting nine park-owned homes. And most usually we'll try to renovate them. We will not typically replace them. If we're able to renovate them, we will. And that's because like a full gut, like down to the studs renovation job is $15,000 to $20,000. So you can sell that home. You can do that and then sell it for $25,000. We make a little $5,000 profit. Someone gets a home that's like now nice on the inside for, and pretty much like down to the studs, brand new. I mean, we've even had to like prop it up and replace like roof trusses and things on them before. But usually that's the thing. If the roof is caving in, usually we'll be yanking the home out and replacing it with a newer one. But that's it's just, but if it's like structurally good, then it usually economically makes more sense. Because if we have to go source a home, I don't want to go bring in junkers. So if we're going to go to that trouble, then we're bringing in something that's usually 2000s. We try to aim for like 10 or 15 years or newer. So then, by the time we move it and bring it in and do it, we're into it for 35 or 40. So then we're going to sell it for 40 or 45. And then you're selling at a little bit of a higher price point. It's still way cheaper than, if the median home cost is $300,000 and someone's getting a home that they're going to own for $45,000, that's still a smoking deal. And at that point we've made sure that the inside's good and everything, and it's in good condition. But still, to be able to sell for 25 versus 45, the difference is, at 25, you're going to get someone coming with a pillow sack full of cash, and you're just going to get a cash offer, or very likely, right? If at 45, they might need to get chattel financing. So it's like more of a to-do for it. And then if you're bringing in a brand new home, usually the price points are more like 70s, which you can sell those too. But then once again, it's like now you've got to get chattel financing. Now they got to have a bigger down payment and all this stuff. So that's why like those rehab ones are kind of sweet, because you don't have to source them, you don't have to move them, you don't have to install them. You've just got to do the rehab, and then we can get somebody in there that can be a really good tenant. And if they own it, they don't even have debt on it at that point. They've whatever paid $20K cash or something. That's going to be a real sticky tenant, because now their lot rent is really low. There's no way they can find housing that affordable anywhere else, right? So they've got the best deal in town. They're going to stay around. So those end up being really good tenants too. So I think the rehab route. So I'm not afraid of the park. I'm not afraid of the park on homes. I'm afraid of old rentals is what I'm afraid of. Like if they're vacant, that's cool because we can renovate it and sell it. The rentals are especially the old rentals are it can be a headache.
Yeah, and it's tricky because like you said, every single one of them could be different. It could be a 40-year-old home that is completely renovated and they've taken good care of it. It's immaculate. You don't have to do anything. It could be a 15-year-old home that's a dumpster fire. You really don't know until you get in there. And just because it's like that when you buy it, that's the part I've learned, unfortunately, the hard way. Just because it's nice when you buy it doesn't mean it's nice 12 months after you own it. Like they can go downhill pretty fast. But you're right, though. Like the price sensitivity with mobile home tenants is like one of the most surprising things, at least I found when I got into the industry. I mean, we looked at our first couple of renovations like you did. We're like, okay, we can buy this home, bring it into the park, renovate it, $20,000. We'll be able to sell it for $30,000, no problem. So some of them went over budget. We spent $25,000, but it's like there's a difference between somebody who's got cash and like, okay, now they've got to get a loan, and there's not a lot of great options for that. And so you quickly because in my mind, I'm sitting here thinking like, man, even $40,000 for a house, that's a crazy good deal. Somebody's got to buy that, but it's just a weird zone where it's not easily financeable, and there's not a lot of people with that much cash who aren't buying their own land. And
there's people with $20,000 in their bank account. There's very few with 40. I feel like.
Yeah, but it's like you said, somebody with $20,000 cash, they're financially responsible. They're going to be a fantastic tenant. And like you said, the only payment in their life for their house is their lot rent and their utilities. So not much, like extremely affordable. And to your point, there's no other cheaper option out there anywhere. Even buying their own land is usually not cheaper.
It's the only type of housing out there that like two parents making minimum wage salary can afford without any government subsidies at all. It's pretty cool. Yeah, there's kind of nothing else like it.
Yeah, and that's one of the interesting things. Like I never even thought of Section 8 as like an optional thing, but now, I mean, the government, who knows if they'll do it, but they're at least talking about getting rid of Section 8. It's like, man, that would scare the heck out of me if I built my whole portfolio on just that,
Yeah. It's like a good thing we don't, good thing we were excluded from that program, because had it been available, we probably would have applied for it, because why not? But this is why, right? Because now it's like they're going to yank that funding, and now you've got a whole tenant base that's not going to be able to pay rent. That's going to be interesting for some folks.
Yeah, it's definitely, and that's what's interesting about it. Like people think of, because a lot of people get confused. They think, oh, mobile home parks, they're affordable housing, but affordable housing is an actual term. It's like an actual term for like government programs that are government funded. It's one of the biggest misconceptions I find. Like our tenants are not getting cheese from the government. I mean, they might be on Social Security, but this is
Yeah.
not subsidized. This is just fundamentally affordable, which is one of my favorite parts about it.
Yeah, it's actually like our you know our most expensive park that we're bringing residents in right now. We're bringing residents in at $600, and in that market, a 2 bedroom apartment. I think the median 2 bedroom apartment is 1350 or something for 2 bedrooms. So I mean, if you can, they can come in, they can come in and have a 3 bedroom house with a yard, and they can park by their door, and like and
Nobody
it's
above them, nobody to the sides.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's less than half of what it costs for a 2 bedroom apartment with people banging on the walls, and like 3 bedroom apartments is probably 1/3 of the cost. So it's like a good middle ground between, like, obviously it's good if people can buy a house but they can't afford the house, right? And then it's like you go to the rental and you can't afford the rent. And so it's kind of like this good middle ground where it's like you've got this affordable thing that you buy, and then you've got this rent that you can afford. So it's like it kind of bridges the gap, I feel like, between the two. And then they have equity in their house. And so I mean, there's some people will say like, oh, they're technically personal property and the price it doesn't depreciate, it goes down. That's actually not true. I was reading some article in 2024. I think mobile homes appreciated faster than any other type of housing.
Really?
So they do.
Wow.
Yeah, the value of them can go up. And even if it stays flat, just the fact that they have the equity, like a lot of our residents, when they move out, they don't move out very often, but when they do, they tend to sell their home instead of just leaving. So they'll find your next resident for you, which is cool. Still got to pass like background checks and stuff, but then so you've got this like 0 day, zero cost turnover, which you don't have in apartments. But then also for them, they get this chunk of cash out that they can take to go, start whatever their next step of their life is somewhere. So it's got some cool angles to it too.
Yeah. And as a park owner, a lot of times, like when you do occasionally have people move out, there's two move outs, right? There's a home moving out, which the only ones I've ever personally experienced of a home moving out was the creditor yanking the home because the person wasn't paying the creditor. Like they had a loan. It's only been new homes. All my used homes I've ever had have stayed. It's the new homes that get yanked, and it's the most disappointing thing because you're like, oh no, there's this new home. It's looking better. But yeah, where was I going with that? Anyways, yeah.
You said two types of move outs.
Yeah, there's two. But like you said, like when a resident moves out, the home stays there. And like you
Right.
said, a lot of times you don't even know. And I've even found that like if it's the first year or two that you bought a property, it might even be better because when that person does move out, typically that current resident is at a much lower rate, and the new person come in pays market. So it's kind of like, okay, well, that tenant left, the new person's excited for a new house and a
Right.
new property.
Right.
And for me as a park owner, it's higher rent, and I didn't have to just go up a ton on one person. It just people came in, they're happy with the new rate, and then word kind of gets out to all the other tenants that like, oh, we're actually getting a really good deal because ultimately, if you buy on one of those deals where hey, you bought the park, the rents are really low, you're going to be doing work to get it up. Those tenants who have been there 20 years, they're always going to just remember how cheap it was. When they see new people moving in at like double what they're currently at, they're like, oh, okay, this park owner is actually working with us. But it takes that happening before the word gets out and they realize like, oh, these guys are working with us. This is still a really good deal.
Yeah, before they see. Yeah, and same thing. Like we try not to shoot people up to where we think the market should be. What we can bring new people in at. We're not gonna like shoot people up all at once. We catch them up over a number of years. But yeah, you're right. You have this thing where like the kind of old tenants are grandfathered in kind of at this lower, sometimes significantly lower rate.
Yeah. What would you say has been, and I know the answer, but I'm going to ask for asking sake. What has been the toughest experience you've had owning a mobile home?
Yeah. So I've had a whole bunch of them that went really well. Despite the old lady stories and things like that have gone really well. I had one that did not. So it was the 51 pad park that I bought. Fortunately, it was just my park with my own money. So I bought this. This was the last park I bought before I started syndicating. And it had a wastewater treatment plant, which means it's a private sewer system, kind of like a septic field, except it was right on this beautiful river with like stand-up paddle boarders going by. So it's too close to the river to have a septic field. So you actually had this like thing with these tanks and these like things that would blow bubbles, and it would basically like a little mini private sewer plant that the poop water would go in one end and it would go through whatever processes and come out as clean effluent on the other end. And so I was obviously nervous about that. Way into it, but it was a really good deal. I got it it's beautiful park, all tenant-owned homes, like right at the spot on the river. I bought it right at the COVID dip. Like I went under contract in March of 2020. And the broker said like 2 or 3 weeks later, they started getting mobbed with calls on this thing. And I got it because it was like they listed it and then COVID hit and then they dropped the price, and then I got it I got a really good deal. Thankfully. But so I was nervous about this wastewater treatment plant. So like, okay, well, I did a bunch of I can figure this out. Like there are parks with these, so they must be a thing. So I did all the research on how to do due diligence on them. I had it inspected. I interviewed the operator. I talked to the city, the county, the state, the federal, EPA, like everybody. And the operator was like sending daily measurements of the effluent, like samples to all these different agencies, and everything was good. It was all in conformance. It was all tip top. Like, I don't know if you could have like put a cup at the other end and drank the water. Maybe you could have. I don't know if I would have, but it was like discharging effectively clean effluent. Like the thing was in compliance. It's all good. And then, so I had the park, for, let me see, that was 21. So I had it for a little over a year. Was it 22 when this happened? My years are kind of blended together with COVID there, but I think I had the park for about a year. Because I had infilled some lots. I installed Metron meters and built back water and sewer and did all the things, brought the revenue up. And then, at this point we had just syndicated our first park. I had this big, what I thought was a big cash cushion in reserve. I had my HELOC all paid off, was empty. So I had like all this like liquidity sitting there. I had all the passive income coming in. I was like, I'm financially independent. So I went in to quit my job. And my boss convinced me to stay part-time, fortunately. And I was like, cool. So, cause I was trying to build my investing business on the side. And like 2 weeks later, I was gonna leave for a hunting trip. It was Saturday night. I was packing. I was gonna leave on Sunday, and I talked to the manager. I had talked to the manager like the Friday, and I was like, "Yeah, if anything comes up, you got it. I'm gonna be off the grid for a week." And then I get this call from him on Saturday evening, which is like you see that and you're like, "Uh oh." And so I picked it up, and he was like, "Hey, there was a fire." And the wastewater treatment plant was in a building, and the wastewater treatment plant was totaled in the fire. And I was like, okay, but he's like, but I already alerted insurance, and I already we've arranged with this other guy to come and like pump the sewage into a truck and haul it to the neighboring municipal plant. Said they would take it. So he like figured all that out. So that was awesome. But still it was like, I don't know, like, and I had insurance. But so he was like, I think I've got it. I don't think there's anything you can do right now. So he's like, I think you should still go on your hunting trip. And I was like, oh man, I don't know. So I still went, but I didn't, like, my brain was spinning the whole time, and rightfully so. So, it turned out that I made a big mistake in my due diligence before I bought the park. I didn't make a mistake in the inspections or anything like that. Like I think I did all the right things. From that perspective, but it was just this one small but big mistake. I took the appraiser's word for how much to insure the park for. So when you buy a property, part of the appraisal that the bank will make you get is like they have this like recommended recommended value list of values that you should get for your insurance limits of all the different things that you need to insure. And so they had in there $70,000 as their recommended insurance for the building and the plant. It was just like like a metal building barn kind of thing. And then this plant inside, which is just these like metal tanks with fans and bubbles and stuff. So 70,000. And I even remember thinking about it at the time, like in hindsight, what I should have done is go and talk to a contractor and figure out what these things cost to replace and what the process is. If I had just done that one thing, this deal would have been a home run, like a triple your money in 3 years home run. But I didn't. And so we had it insured for $70,000. And I remember thinking, I was like, well, I've got a good cash cushion. Like if it's actually 100, like that won't sink me. I don't think anything's going to happen to it anyway. Okay. So I didn't dive in on that, and I should have. The replacement cost for the wastewater treatment plant ended up being $670,000. So almost 10x,
Jeez.
10x what it was insured for. Uh, and so like I didn't know how I was going to pay for that. And then it gets worse than that even because the temporary pumping of the sewage was $800 a load, and they were taking multiple loads per day. And it ended up being about 50,000. Once like all of a sudden, like we started seeing how many times per day they're having to come, and you just did the math real quick, and you're like, that's $50,000 a month. And the park
Jeez.
grossed $25,000 a month in rent before any
Yeah.
expenses are paid. So
Man.
like I didn't know what to do. So I had this extra. The insurer fortunately had put in this like extra special coverage, extra special, or it was called like special coverage or something like that. That kicked in and covered the pumping, but it had $100,000 of that. So that was going to cover 2 months of pumping. And then what, right? So then it was like
Right.
I'm recourse debt, right? I had signed on the loan and everything. So I was like, oh my gosh, like are we going to lose everything here? It was very scary. I mean, I had a teary conversation with my wife where I was like, I think we're gonna lose the house. I think we're gonna lose all of it. I don't know what, and I don't even know how that's even gonna work. I'm like, what about the residents who live there? Like, they can't live somewhere with no sewer. So what happens when we can't pay the $50,000 a month? Do we just need to evict them all so that the sewage stops flowing? Like, I don't even know. So there's like 51 families at this community that, were maybe going to lose their homes. It was terrifying. It was awful. Like it was really, really, like I wasn't sleeping. I was like, I couldn't, and it was like, I didn't know what to do. So I just started calling around. All I could think of was like, I just need to talk. Someone's got to be able to point me in the right direction because I don't know what, like I'm stumped. So I started calling everybody I knew. And I called Frank Rolfe. Frank Rolfe actually picks up the phone if you call him, which is crazy. Frank Rolfe talked to me about it. He pointed me to this other guy. All these people, but like I don't know. Still, like nobody had a good answer. And then I finally talked to my buddy Blake, the same guy that I bought that first park from. I called him up and was like, "Dude, here's what's going on." And he was like, "Well, he was like, he had the right answer. He was like, you got to call your lender and level with them and tell them what's happening." He's like, they don't want this loan to go bad. So I made, and that's like the call I don't want to make, right? Which is like someone lent me, I don't care if it's an investor or if it's a lender, like someone gave me their money. They trusted me. I don't want to like let someone down like that. But so I called, John at First Secure Bank in Chicago, super good dude, super good bank. I was like, I explained the whole thing, like $50,000 a month. It's grossing 25. I don't know what to do. Like, I was just like, I just wanted to like, it's basically like throwing up my hands. Like, I don't know what to do here. And he goes, "Oh, I think you're going to be fine." And I was like, "John, did you hear? Did you hear what I said?" But so he's like, "No, you've done all this stuff. Like you bought it at a really good price. You've got a ton of equity in this thing." So he ended up doing like a cash out refi. So I have my savings plus my HELOC plus the insurance plus this cash out refi, and we kind of cobbled together enough to get this replacement done. And we still had to like get EPA approval, and like the clock's ticking 50 grand a month. Even with all that, like we still wouldn't have it was like over a year wait for one of these plants because they were like back ordered on them.
Jeez.
And then and then somebody like the contractor knew my situation. Who, fortunately, I had done a study of it like a week or we just finished up a study that I had a civil engineer doing. Because we were thinking of some upgrades to the plant, like because there's some kind of UV system you can use that would be more efficient and like save some energy and cut down on the utility costs and stuff, and the chemical costs. But so anyway, so I had a civil engineer who knew the plant already. So, and he recommended a contractor, like they say, rock stars know rock stars, right? So he recommended a contractor. So the contractor was helping me with it. He knew my situation. So he was able to get the plant company talk to one of their customers who was like not in a hurry and was like, "Oh yeah, they can have our place in line." So someone I don't even know like gave us their place in line for this plant. Like it was crazy how many people like stepped in to help us in this situation. It was amazing. But yeah, so we got it designed. We answered the EPA's question, all the EPA comments, and then sent it back and fixed it, and then they made more comments, and every time it was like another month, and it was like, come on, EPA, just give us all your comments at once, please. Like we answer, like this is taking forever. Like, and they, the Michigan EPA, they were like, shoot, it was COVID, so they had like lost all their staff.
Oh man.
So it was all just like brand new people trying to do this plan review that had never done it before. So it's like, they were doing their best. But anyway, we got there, we got it approved, and then it was like supposed to get installed, and I'm like counting, I'm like, okay, we're gonna have like 3 or 4 weeks of buffer before like we run out of money on the pumping again. And then the contractor's like, oh crap, like it's the spring thaw, and like Michigan in the spring, like they lower the weight limit on the roads, and we're going to be too heavy. We can't deliver it. It's like, I don't know how long the spring thaw thing's going to last. So I was like, so I called the highway department. I explained the situation and got like this emergency waiver to the weight limit on the roads. And then like they installed it, they hooked it up, and it was like end of May, and they got it. It was October when it burned down. They got it running like, I think it was the last week of May. They hooked it up and turned it on. I was like, oh thank God. Like we made it. And then we were still screwed because rates were shooting up. It was right when rates were shooting up. So the refi that John had done was a 1-year balloon with the expectation that we would do that plus the commercial loan, like refi the whole package together at the end of it. But then rates were doing this, and the Fed was like, yeah, we're still raising. And so I was like, oh crap, like we're going to not be able to service the debt. This is going to balloon in a year. Like, oh no. And like I had this other commercial loan that was at this nice low rate. The whole loan was going to have to get refied up to this higher rate. So I was like, we're still screwed. So anyway, so then we listed it and sold it, and then it had like brand new infrastructure. It wasn't in a building, so it couldn't burn down again. It's like an outdoor plant. And so then we and then like three different buyers. Tanner help with this. Tanner could tell you too. Like the first two were like, they just sat on it and did no DD for their whole 45 days. And then it'd be like day 43, and they'd be like, actually up the price to 2/3 of what we offered. And so I had to tell them to go pound sand, but then every time the rates were higher, so the offers were lower. And so, but we finally, we got it sold that fall, and I managed to, I sold it for $750,000 more than I bought it for. So we bought it for 1.75, sold it for 2.5. So I still lost money because it was the total bill on the thing was 1.2 million. Insurance covered 200. So 100 came from either the loan or my funds. Oh, sorry, 1 million. And then we got 750 back. So basically I took it was a 6-figure degree in infrastructure replacement. But now I know a lot about wastewater treatment.
Could have been a lot worse. I mean, every single thing you mentioned, the EPA could have taken another 6 months, or the actual plant itself might have gotten delayed. You might have been last in line for that. I mean, so everything went right. So I mean, 100K is not bad given that scenario. I mean, nobody wants to lose any money, but that's crazy. How much better did that make you at due diligence on future deals having gone through?
Well, it certainly made me nitpick some things that I didn't know needed to be nitpicked. Like I knew to look at some things in the insurance, but there was some things where it's like, this person says that, like, I'm not just going to take that for granted. I'm actually going to, study it, and especially the insurance side of things. But it also gave me some confidence. Like, okay, I came from a construction background in my structural engineering. Like, I can execute a construction project. And it actually led to, so there was another deal where I was like, cause I remember thinking like, I would have sold that park at a fire sale to get out of that. You know what I mean? In the middle of that. And so I was like, maybe there's other people out there like that. So we actually there was one, our park in Illinois, we got, needed a full replacement of the well water system. And it was a similar situation where the owner, like is 39 pads. It was on well water, in a great location, like right outside of Rockford, Illinois, which is a great market, like kind of it was like surrounded by farms, but the farms were all getting redeveloped into, subdivisions kind of all around it. But the well water system was failing, and the owner had a bunch of equity but didn't have the cash to do the project, right? And so we were able to actually get this really good deal at a super low basis, come in and execute this whole $700,000 well water replacement project.
$700,000 for the well?
It was 600,000. It was 600,000.
Crazy.
Yeah,
What was it, is it a new well or is it connecting to city water or what is that?
Illinois. It was like Illinois EPA compliance. We had to put it in a building, and we had to have the whole new tank, the tank, and the pumps, and the building, and the whole system. It's crazy because like we've gotten quotes. Our other well water park is in Arizona, and we've gotten quotes for that one. If we need to replace the whole system, it's like $60K. So which is a more normal price, but apparently if you add up like union labor and the Illinois EPA requirements, you have to pay 10 times as much for something. So
Yeah, I've heard it's a pretty corrupt, like Chicago specifically. Like it's just like open source. You got to pay certain people to get things past a certain. That's what I've heard from other people.
Yeah, I'm not
in like
corrupt.
Chicago itself.
What I've seen with the Illinois stuff is, and not actually, the Illinois EPA is pretty good. They'll return your calls, but some of them, like specifically the DMV, maybe I shouldn't call them out because maybe they'll punish them more. But I don't know how they could treat us any worse. So whatever. The DMV, like we trying to recover title to a home took us over a year because they will not answer the phone, they will not return phone calls. They will not answer emails. Literally, the only way to get an answer out of them is to send them a paper letter. And it takes them like a month, and they will mail you back. And so it's usually like, I don't know what to do. We need this thing. And they're like, you need to fill out form, blah, 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 blah. And then we fill it out, and we send it in. And then like a month later, you get back like, this line was wrong. And so it was just this back and forth where you can't just like talk to somebody and figure it out. Like, so there was like several of the state of Illinois departments that are like that, but which surprisingly, like the Illinois EPA people are actually pretty good. Like they'll actually pick up the phone and like, but that's like that's why I like we're doing like the Ohio, Kentucky, and now Tennessee, like that region right there. Like if we have a question, we can just call people and like the government people will pick up the phone. It's so refreshing to be able to just talk
and put you in touch with the people you need to talk to.
Yeah, and get you an answer. Get you an answer because we're like, hey, we want to do this right. Like help us do this right. Like we're trying to do things by the book here. So that's Illinois. But it was cool. Like that whole thing in Illinois. Like we basically saved that community. You can't have a community with no water. So we came in and we executed the project. And we got the bids from contractors. And we got an engineer and the whole thing. Have a whole like engineering design that had to get submitted for approval and we did it. And now it's an awesome community. We just did a cash out refi on that one, and we're about to use part of that to repave the roads, which is cool because we put all this work in, but it's all this like underground infrastructure the residents don't see.
Can't see it. Yeah,
we need to do something that they can actually see, I think. But
yes. So a lot of people in the mobile home park space will say, "Hey, we don't buy." And I know this from brokering. People would tell me all the time, we don't buy parks with wastewater treatment plants. We don't buy parks with wells. A lot of times you can kind of just tell they're just kind of repeating industry narrative. Like they don't really know why they don't want to buy it, but they just kind of say they don't. So you've done both, and it sounds like you've had them go good, you've had them go bad. What would you tell people looking to buy parks with one of those, like what they need to look out for and like why they should pass or why it might be okay to buy it?
So I would do well again for sure with good due diligence. So there's things you need to be careful of. You need to have a really good operator because you typically need to be submitting like water samples. So you need to understand the state also because like there's different requirements for the well. So you need to make sure you have a good operator for it. And then you just need to budget for the operator and budget for CapEx. But what's cool about well is you don't have a water bill, right? So it's you do need to budget for it's not free, right? Like someone's got to go out there and take samples and all the things, but it's cheaper. And same thing with septic. You need to budget for CapEx and you need to go get the field tested and make sure it's, do your percolation test and stuff to make sure that it's like the field's in good condition, and you probably should get some quotes on what it would cost to replace the system if you ever needed to, and make sure you could, that wouldn't be a ship sinker. But you don't have a sewer bill if you have that, right? So they're very the good thing to well and septic is they're very inexpensive to operate. The bad thing is you need to plan for CapEx, right? You need to plan for the CapEx. And you need to be able to handle that CapEx somehow, right? So you need to either have reserves or some way that you could tackle the CapEx, access to credit, whatever the case may be, insurance. So you have to be able to handle the CapEx. When you have city water and sewer, the CapEx is much more limited. You still have pipes you got to think about, right? Water pipes and sewer pipes, and that's no small thing. But but in that case, you don't have as big of a CapEx thing to think about, but you have higher operating costs because your water and sewer bills are probably the number one thing on your profit and loss. So maybe you want to budget for sub meters to bill back, but then are your water lines leaking? And there's stuff you have to think about there as well. So there's just like pros and cons there. The thing I would say about wastewater treatment plants is that's the one I would hesitate on. I would do another wastewater treatment plant deal, but everything else about it would have to be like home run and I'm buying it in spite of the wastewater treatment plant. I would know how to do it right. But it's the problem with the wastewater treatment plant, like if everything else is right, it's got the worst of both worlds because you have to plan on the CapEx, clearly, as my story shows. But you also, it's very expensive to operate. You need an operator who's taking samples. The EPA is going to scrutinize the heck out of you. So our wastewater treatment plant, the one I was looking back at the bills, I don't think city sewer would have been, city sewer might have been cheaper to operate on a monthly basis. And you have to think about the CapEx. So like, I think wastewater treatment is kind of the worst of all worlds. But maybe you buy the park at a 12 cap and it's still a great, and you budget for the expenses and you budget for the CapEx and it's still a great deal. You inspect the heck out of it and get the right insurance. Like I would do it, but it would have to be like I'm not tripping over myself to do another wastewater treatment plant deal. Right. But
thing.
Like, I would know how to do it now. I feel like where I could do it right, and we could protect. We could be protected with the right insurance, and we could budget for the operations. We could do it, but I would want to do due diligence the heck out of it. I would want to triple check the insurance and make sure that my budgets for both CapEx and operations had a lot of fluff in them. Because what if you've got this old timer operator who retires and the new guy charges twice as much? You know what I mean? Like that's a risk, right? So you'd want to understand who's charging how much, who's your backup if this guy gets hit by a truck, because you're just really reliant on that operator.
Is it the same thing with lagoons? I mean, have you looked at any lagoon deals?
I have not, and that's probably where I do what you were referring to earlier with the industry thing and just say, I know some other operators that I'm buddies with that are here in Boise, and I was talking, they've got lagoon plants, and they were like, yeah, the ones we've got are great, like they're zero maintenance and they're cheap to run. they love them. I would need to learn about them. We've typically just said no when we found lagoons because it's just the thing that I think there's. Yeah, I'm not the expert in those, so we've typically passed on those.
From what I've heard from people who've mentioned to me, like some of the risks, it's kind of like your wastewater plant. Like it could potentially fail, but it's not a structure. There's like a chlorination aspect to it, but if it fails, it's because it's like oversaturated the soil, or there's something that's basically like non-fixable about it.
What I've heard is a lot of jurisdiction. I mean, it's basically a poop lake next to your park, right? And then
it smells too. It's crazy. Like
so, but what I've heard the other risk is like regulatory. Is that a lot of the agencies and jurisdictions want to get rid of them, and so they could come in at some point and force you to hook to city sewer. So you need to plan, and that can be expensive because maybe you need to repipe your park. What's the tap fee? What's your sewer fee going to be? So if you underwrote it to have no sewer expense because you have this evaporative lagoon, and then the city comes in and says lagoons are now illegal and you have to hook to our city sewer, and that's going to be $5,000 a month of a sewer bill for you that you didn't have in your underwrite. I think that's one of the risks I've heard is actually kind of a big one is getting forced out of using it. But yeah, there's probably like, what if it fails? I don't know what would make a lagoon fail.
Well, it's funny.
There's probably something.
I saw one not too long ago the park was the lowest part of the parcel of land. The lagoon was actually at a higher elevation and they had built a dam.
Oh.
And I was like, oh my gosh, like you have a really heavy rainstorm and you're just getting a poop flood throughout the park. And on top of that, Cory, I'm not kidding you. There were turtles crawling out of the lake, and I was just like, oh god, like those turtles, there's probably kids playing with those turtles having, it's just like, I don't want to be messing with that, man. Like you get a strong gust of wind and you can smell it. It's just, gosh, who wants to live next to that?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I can't talk. I don't know them. Maybe you fence them and do something.
You get the city to take it over. I've known people who've done that successfully, where the lagoon was built and it was huge, and they come to the city. The city wants to expand past it. Maybe they can feed another two neighborhoods in. And some of these small towns, like they need all the help they can get. And I
Mm.
knew a guy who did this in Dadeville. He actually got the city to take over the ownership of the lagoon, so it's city sewer now. So he still has like some of the smell on a really really windy day because his is surrounded by trees. But in terms of like how the park looks, it operates. There's no sewer tap anymore. I mean, he worked out a really good deal with them because they needed the capacity. So that's a play.
And
But
that's the thing too with the private stuff. Sometimes you find where the city stuff. So we were looking at when we ended up not getting through due diligence on it, unfortunately for a few other reasons. But it was on well water, but it was already hooked to city water. So it was like they just didn't want to pay the water bill, so they were like ready to go, but they're like, we got this well that operates pretty much for free. So
right.
so it was like, yeah, it's well, but if that ever failed, you just turn it on over here. You have a water bill now, but so that can be a thing too. Like same thing with the lagoon. Like if there's city sewer right out in front of it, versus like my park with the wastewater treatment plant, we certainly looked at can we hook the city sewer, but the nearest sewer line was a mile away or something. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Nice. Well, that I mean, it sounds a lot like I remember your talk at Race Fest was the same kind of topic, like one thing at a time. Like when you have those issues, you got to go one because it's what you just talked about. Man, that's just stress after stress after stress. But hey, you figured it out. So that I wanted to bring that up because the park stuff. I've met other park owners. I've not met another person who's done a 100-mile race in Leadville. So can you kind of explain? A, what the heck made you want to do that, and then how that whole experience was?
Yeah, absolutely. So I like to have a goal to train for, and I found that if it's a scary goal, then I will be scared enough that I will actually train for it. So I only wanted to climb. That's all I wanted to do, like rock, ice, snow, technical stuff. I've climbed stuff down in the Andes and up in Alaska, and like all I wanted to do was climb. And I blew up my hand with a camping stove accident at one point, which is a whole other story. But so my hand was blown up, and I was like, well, what am I going to do now? I got to get outside and do something. So a buddy of mine took me, we ran the rim to rim to rim in the Grand Canyon, which was 46 or 48 miles or something like that with 10,000 feet of climbing. And it was like, that was fun. I was like, maybe I could do 100. So I signed up for Leadville. Like, yeah, that's a good idea. Why not? So I think I had read Born to Run at the time, and they talk about Leadville in there. So, and at the time, Leadville, there was no lottery to get in. The entrance thing was, it was first come first serve, and it went on sale at the stroke of midnight New Year's Eve. So to get into it, you basically had to skip the New Year's Eve party and be sitting at your computer ready to click the button, which I did. And so I got in, and I trained all year. I whole thing about like meeting my buddies and like meeting running buddies and people that already knew how to run these ultras and run other races to figure out how they worked. And then I got to Leadville, and it's 100 miles. It's 50 miles out, 50 miles back. You have three like kind of mountain passes that you go over, and then you go over all three on the way back. So I got to mile 60. So I went all the way out, and I came over I came over Hope Pass and came down to the mile 60 aid station, and I was feeling great. And I was like, I couldn't imagine how I could be feeling this good at mile 60, because I had run a 100K race before this, which was 62 miles, and like I almost fell down at the finish line. I was so exhausted. So I was like, I came into mile 60. I was like, I feel great. This is amazing. I picked up my pacer, who's like a buddy who's going to run the last 40 miles with me. I was like, all right, like I said this stupid thing. I was like, only 40 miles to go. Time to pick up the pace. Hammered the next climb, like hands on knees, just like as hard as we could, like trying to just like, there was this guy in front of me in an Italian flag jersey, and I was chasing him the whole way up. Like, I got to catch Italian flag guy. And I never quite caught him. Well, at least on the way up. And then but then by mile 62, my legs died. And I was like, all of a sudden I just bonked, and it was like, oh, like something's wrong. Like I had slowed down to a jog, and then it was a walk, and then it was a shuffle, and then it was like I went from like thinking I'm gonna go sub 24 hours this thing to like my pacer's like worried I'm not gonna finish because it's a 30-hour cutoff. And so he just kept me going. He was like, would not let me sit down at all. I was like, no, you have to keep going. And so like I was walking, but he would just force me to keep going, wouldn't let me stop. At one point I tried to trick him into letting me take a break. He had these brownies with espresso grounds baked into him. And I knew he had them, and I knew they were in the bottom of his pack. So I was like, he'll have to dig to take those out. I'll get to sit down for a second. So I was like, my mouth was so dry, I didn't even think I could chew the brownie. But I was like, I asked for the brownie because I knew he would have to take his pack off so I could get to sit down for a second. And he was like, you keep going, I'll catch up and give it to you. I was like, dang it. But I got to mile 74. 74 aid stations. So we have about a marathon to go. And I remember it was like 1:30 in the morning. I was not moving fast enough to stay warm, so I was like shivering. I sat down in front of the space heater, and I was just like, this is stupid. Like, I can barely walk. It's a death shuffle. How am I going to keep, like, all the like negative thoughts, right? Like, I didn't train hard enough. This is stupid. What am I doing here? Who am I to think I can run 100 miles? I have to run a marathon right now. I can barely walk. Like, I can't even keep myself warm. This is dangerous. I just shouldn't even be here. And people are bringing me soup broth. I sat there in front of that space heater for 40 minutes in the aid station and just didn't get up. And I was just not feeling good. And they brought this guy in. They brought this guy in who had passed out cold on the trail, apparently. Like, he was like half conscious. They drag him into the medical, because the space heater was in the medical tent. So that's where I was sitting. And they drag him in. They put him up on the table, and they're about to give him an IV. And an IV is a disqualification from the race. And he like comes to, sees that they're trying to give him the IV, and like fights them off, and gets up and staggers out of the tent to keep going. And I was like, oh crap, like what's wrong with me? Like my legs hurt. Oh man. All right. So I went and got a cup of coffee. And like I put my big puffy down jacket on, and I just like walked out of the tent. I was like, I can walk to the next aid station. At least man. I could. So, but yeah, that was kind of my big like epiphany, was like when I was looking at it, it was like how do you eat an elephant thing, right? Because, like I had a marathon to go, and like thinking about like going 26 miles was like not doable. But I was like, the next aid station's only a couple miles away. I could just, at worst case, I could just walk to that and quit there if I wanted to. So I can take one more step. I guess that was the point when I gave that talk, was like, I'm not done, because I can go further. So I'm just going to walk to the next. And then by the time I got there, then, we felt a little better, and then kept going, and it was a long night still. But I did finish the race in 28 hours and
wow,
something,
nice.
28 something, yeah.
Leadville's got to be tough too, because I've done some hikes out there, and it's like you don't recover like you're used to at altitude. Like you just don't get enough oxygen.
It starts at 10,000 feet and goes up. Yeah, it's thin air.
Yeah, it's like, geez, wow, man, that's crazy. So what kind of training did you do for that? Was it like just strictly long runs? Did you do sprints or like hill climbs?
Yeah, all of it. So I the first thing, I didn't know how to train for it. So it was just like investing in mobile home parks. I had to find people who did it and like learn. So I did a local 50K. It was called the Frozen Feet. And it was like it was like the first week of January, up in some of the mountains outside of Boise here. And then I Strava stalked all the people. I wanted people who were like a little bit faster than me, so that they were better than me, but not so fast that I couldn't keep up with them in training. And I'd be so I Strava stalked like the 10 people who finished in front of me in the race, and like made friends with a few of them. I was like, hey, can I join you on a training run? And then I ended up making friends with them. So we had this like really good crew where we would meet up at like either 5 or 5:30, depending on how far we were going. But we would run 3 or 4 weekdays, and then we do a long run on the weekend. And so I would do some speed work, some like sprints and things, but it was a lot of like it was a lot of just going and running, putting in the miles, and I would try to have half my weekly mileage. My kind of barometer was I would try to go no more than a 10% bump in mileage per week, and I would try to have half my weekly mileage in one run. So that would be my long. So if I was going to run 50 miles for the week, my long run would be about 25 miles.
Wow.
And then the other 3 or 4 runs would be the other 25 miles.
Interesting. That's an interesting. So
I don't know if that's like right. That's just what I did.
Well, the 10% thing, I probably haven't like legitimately run in like 3 or 4 years, but I used to do a ton of it too. And it was the 10% rule always makes sense, right? Because you don't want to get shin splints. Like a lot of people, I've met a lot of people who will listen to David Goggins that get hyped up, and they go out and run it, and then they break their legs. And it's like, okay, well, you can't go from the couch to doing that. You do have to, like, your muscles might be fine, but your bones have a breaking point too. But
yeah, totally.
The long run, that's crazy. That's a time commitment there to just like, I mean, basically every week you're running a marathon at that point.
Yeah, and it was trails too. So I mean, but the thing was, like, I used to climb before that, so I'd be gone all weekend. So the running was like, I could get up on Saturday at start running at 6 and I could get a 7 hour run in and I'm done at 1 p.m. and then I can still hang out and we can grab lunch and then I'm around for the
Wow.
rest of the weekend. Right. So it was like compared to climbing, it was actually way less of a time commitment.
Wow.
Because I could go right from my door. Like the trails aren't that far from my house. So 7 hour run takes 7 hours. Whereas if I want to climb for 7 hours, I got to probably drive an hour to the trailhead, hike up, set up, do the climb, hike down,
Yeah.
back. Like, so 7 hours is probably going to take me 10 or 11 if I wanted
Yeah.
to go climbing. But
And it's something cool to do. Like if you're running on trails, like a lot of people get into running and they just start on a treadmill. It's like I can't run a mile on a treadmill. I just get so bored and I just got to do something else. It's just you're already doing something tough. You might as well make it cool and like actually go somewhere fun to run. Because then
yeah,
you
the trails are fun too. And it's like you're going up, you get a little tired of going up, now you're going down. Like, oh, my quads are starting to scream from going down. Now we're going up. Like, I used to look forward to the uphills in the race because it was, especially if it was right after an aid station, because some of the aid stations in the ultras are, it's not like a marathon where it's like, Gatorade and goo. It's like they'll have pancakes and breakfast burritos and like all this like bacon and like really good.
yeah.
So I grabbed like some pancakes or a burrito or something. And I always like it if there was an uphill afterwards because it's an excuse to walk. So you can just like walk and eat. Because at some point it's just an eating contest, right? Because like
Yeah.
if you can keep the calories coming in, you can keep going. And so a lot of people's like stomachs end up like they have like GI issues eventually from the running. They can't eat anymore. My friend Joelle, she was the local like badass here who she had like all the course records on every ultra. But I know she used to talk about how she had a hard time. She couldn't eat in the really long races, and so the only thing she could drink is chocolate milk. And so she would like, but so she would. I know she would. Yeah, she was amazing. She was really really good. Anything like 100K or less, and she could kind of get through without eating. But I think I heard an interview with her once where she was saying like the 100 miler one she struggled a little more with on the nutrition side just because of and that was like I was never fast but I could always like choke down food, so I have the iron
Yeah.
constitution of my stomach is my like ultra running superpower is my ability to eat.
Yeah, I mean it's surprising. Like I did an Ironman a couple years ago, and I had never eaten while exercising before that day. And
You gotta practice.
that was my number one concern. I'm like, how the hell am I? And I tried one of those goos like for bike once, and I was like, nope, I'll just I'll just suck it up. But I ate from like the start of it to the end of it, and I felt like I wasn't even eating. It was just like bananas, cookies. I could eat anything, and I was just burning it all off. And I remember doing the math at the end. I was like, I burned 19,000 calories. I could have eaten literally anything you put in front of me. I would just be consuming it, no problem, no questions asked.
Yeah, that's so. My brother-in-law is my partner in this business we're doing. He's done a bunch of halves. He's doing his first full Ironman in the fall, so he's training for that right now. So I'm cheering
Nice.
him on. I'm old man mode right now. All my stories are like old has-been stories. My knees are shot. Like I don't run the ultras anymore. But
Do you have any like big goals for like athletic events or something like that that you've got in the future? Or are you pretty much
I've
just
been training jujitsu is kind of my thing right now. So my kids do it too. So it's really fun. So we both do it. So I'm coming off an injury. So they're competing actually in Las Vegas in a few weeks at the IBJJF American Nationals. I'm not. I'm just coming off a rib injury, so I'm not. But I like if I can get if I can. I need to cut a little bit of weight. But if I can get down to weight. I'd like to do the Masters Worlds in Las Vegas, like Labor Day weekends.
nice? How long you been doing that?
It's 2019. I took some break, like
Wow.
COVID hit, and I kind of got out of everything shut down, and then I kind of got out of the habit of going. So I took there's some
Yeah.
breaks in there, but yeah, for a while. Yeah,
Yeah, if
it's
anything
fun.
is, I can't imagine owning a Brazilian jiu-jitsu gym during COVID. Like, there's no way possible to do that social distant.
Oh
But man,
man, yeah. No, it was. I was glad, and it's cool. Like the guys who teach it, they're from Brazil. And they're like kind of legends
legit.
of the of
Nice.
this. Yeah, like Gigi moved here to Boise. I was like, everyone's like, how the heck did these guys? Because pick like Boise, Idaho, out of everywhere.
Yeah.
But he's like. He helped coach at one point like Hodger Gracie for his comeback match against Buchecha, which Hodger's like the greatest of all time. So these guys are like kind of legends of the sport, and they're here, and so it's like kind of a cool
That
cool
is
thing.
cool.
It's
Yeah.
like it'd be like if Michael Jordan opened up a basketball camp
Yeah, in
near you. You'd
Boise.
probably want to like do the basketball team, you know.
Yeah, he'd be like, "Oh, I gotta try it out."
Yeah.
Shoot.
Or
So
maybe
what's
more like
the?
Phil Jackson. He's more like the Phil Jackson, I would say.
Yeah, Michael Jordan's not really a coach. Yeah, I
Yeah,
don't know
yeah,
if he's more of a competitor. So what's the biggest thing that you're working on right now for Freedom Investing Group?
yeah. So we're trying to grow, right? So we're closing on a deal in a few weeks. I've got another one under contract, so we'll see. There should be maybe another one coming up after that. And then
Nice.
I'd like to get another good sized one under contract. I'd love it if I could get one under contract kind of this summer to close one more good sized one this year. Is the goal. So yeah,
When you say good size, what kind of size is that?
good question. I would love to find like 100 or more pads, even if it was in a portfolio. If it was a couple parks. But like the one we've got right now that we're working towards closing is 149 pads. So for me, that's pretty good size. I know there's other people who have take down 500 pad portfolios, which someday I will.
They're not good deals. They're not good deals. They're always like, every time like someone like does one of those, they're always like on these like you look at the margin, it's like you're not even really making anything. It's like you get this big fee, you get to say you own however many pads, but like they just sell for such a premium. That's REIT territory. I think that like 149 as a portfolio is that's a good way to get them.
I think so. Like, I think that's like, if I could find something else around that size, I'd be really, really happy. If we get one more of those this year, man, that'd make this a really good year. So
nice. So what's like your average day now, like a given week? What do you think you're spending most of your time on?
interesting. I mean, it's last year it was looking at deals and underwriting because we just didn't have deals, right? And so it was like we were offering all over the place. It was a lot of underwriting and offering on deals. And then this year, all of a sudden, like all these deals we've been working on, we've had 5 deals under contract this year. All of a sudden it's like it's been due diligence, it's been capital raising, it's been a lot of capital raising, a lot of due diligence. I think those two things are like most days. Yeah.
Do you feel like the sellers who were just kind of holding off, like waiting for those rates to drop, finally realize like, hey, they're not going to. So the price we can get
I
today.
think so. It seemed like something switched because a lot, like I was just off on pricing all last year, and we closed one deal, which was a good deal, but just one, and we were sending tons of offers, and we just closed the one. And then this year it was like a lot of them that we had, I had been working on last summer. They came back around. Either someone else dropped out of contract on them, or for one reason or another, they came back around, and the pricing has been working out a little bit better. So yeah, it's been.
It seems like that's what's happening. Like when during COVID, I mean, parks were selling for a premium, and you as a broker, like that's what I was doing at the time. You could list something for a pretty high price, and there was somebody from California usually who was going to buy it.
Oh
that's
yeah, like a
typically what was
lot of people,
happening.
they would bid up over asking.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
Yeah.
Those are wild times.
Yeah. Well, I feel like today, I mean, now I feel like is a great time to buy because the rates are up, and so like not every deal pencils, and so buyers are not really pushing the prices up. So if you can get a park today, you can still get it at a pretty decent basis. Whereas like a couple of years ago, it was just a bidding war, and it's hard to get good
buy
deals.
A park at a higher price with a lower rate, or would you rather buy it at a lower price with a higher rate? I think it's the second option, right? Because what do they say? Like,
exactly.
Marry the price and date the rate. Marry the basis. Yeah.
A lot of residential realtors are always like posting that. I'm like, what about the people who just bought 2 years ago and still are dating both of them? Like they're kind of in a bad situation, which was why I like the basis. Like, I looked at some deals where it's like, I mean, I was telling you before the call, I've been talking to this one park owner for 4 years, and we're finally under contract, hopefully going to close next month. And it's like,
that's awesome.
Damn, if they would have sold it to me, back then, gosh, my rate, this would be smoking. And it's like the same price. Like they've done nothing to the park since then. They've just been waiting, trying to figure out what they're going to do. And that's okay. I've been patient, but it's like, you know what? I've learned enough about it where it's like the basis is the same. Over time, their rate will change. I would have thought I would have been sloppy about it before, just thinking it's a good deal because of the rate, or, it's just easy when debt is so cheap. It's easy for bad deals to get bought.
Yeah.
Whereas like now, man, I'm having to go and talk to this bank about why it works, all this other stuff, and it's just different. Like it's the buyers are not, if they're not willing to do that amount of work to get a deal done, they're just not buying right now, which is why
Totally.
I
There's
think
less
guys like
buyers
you and
out there.
me,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a good time. It's a good time
Yeah.
to be a buyer when there's less of them out there.
Totally. I
Nice.
do need to jump in a minute here. So,
Cool. Well, I appreciate you joining the call and chatting with us about all this stuff. Is there anything really important you'd like to share about Freedom Investment Group before we hop off?
I would just say if anyone's interested in connecting or learning more, I have a free PDF about passive mobile home park investing at passivemhp.com. So check it out.
Hey,
And I'm on
how'd you
LinkedIn
get
too, so feel free to DM me.
nice? How'd you get that domain, man? That seems like an obvious one.
It's pretty good.
Nice. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, Cory, I appreciate it. As always, it's great talking to you, and we'll be in touch, man.
Awesome. Thanks, Jeff. Super fun, man.
See ya.